In the 1920s, Hollywood created a devastating lie about the black experience, projecting racist stereotypes onto screens across the nation. But one man refused to accept the narrative. He was an entrepreneur, a novelist, and a pioneer who would build an entire industry outside the white establishment. He controlled the camera, the budget, the distribution, and the message. His name was Oscar Micheaux, and this is the story of the relentless visionary who created the first independent black cinema and gave a community its own voice. Oscar Devereux Micheaux was born in 1884 in Metropolis, Illinois. He was the fifth of 13 children, descended from former enslaved people. Like many ambitious young black men of the era, he left the South seeking opportunity, eventually settling in Chicago. Micheaux worked various jobs, from shoeshine boy to Pullman porter, a role that gave him invaluable experience traveling the nation, observing diverse black communities, and learning about distribution and logistics firsthand. He absorbed the stories and dialects that would later fill his novels and films. Inspired by the promise of land ownership, Micheaux moved to South Dakota and became one of the few African Americans to successfully establish a homestead. The struggles and triumphs of his years as a farmer formed the basis for his first major literary work. Unable to secure a publisher, Micheaux shrewdly decided to become his own publisher. He traveled tirelessly, selling his book, The Conquest, the story of a Negro pioneer, directly to readers. He learned to control his product from conception to consumption, a lesson that would define his film career. In 1915, America was captivated by D.W. Griffith's film, The Birth of a Nation. Though technically brilliant, the film was a vile piece of propaganda that glorified the Ku Klux Klan and depicted black men as savage beasts. Its cultural damage was immense. For Micheaux and many others, this film was a call to arms. They realized that in the 20th century, cinema was power. If white America would not finance stories that depicted black life with complexity, dignity, and ambition, then black America must do it for itself. A film company bought the rights to adapt Micheaux's book, The Homesteader. When they tried to alter the story to feature a sensational racist ending, Micheaux broke ties and resolved to make the film himself. In 1919, Oscar Micheaux became the first African American to produce a feature film. The silent movie The Homesteader was a direct response to the racist portrayals of Hollywood. It featured complex, aspirational black characters struggling with universal themes of success, romance, and injustice. Micheaux operated entirely outside the established system, building his own film company, the Micheaux Film and Book Company. This meant he was responsible for everything: raising money, writing the script, directing, producing, and developing the prints. To finance his films, he often used a subscription model, selling stock directly to members of the black community. He was a master fundraiser, using his charm, reputation, and bold vision to convince small investors to fund his artistic dreams. Hollywood had a monopoly on theaters, but Micheaux found his own distribution network. He focused on race films, movies made for and primarily shown to black audiences in independent theaters, churches, social halls, and roadshow tents. He personally managed the roadshow circuit, traveling with his own prints, hiring musicians, and securing venues, a logistical feat as challenging as any of the freedom rides that would come decades later. He was a pioneer of independent distribution. Micheaux's films were revolutionary because they showed African Americans as complex human beings. His characters were lawyers, doctors, entrepreneurs, and artists, grappling with issues of class, identity, and passing, topics mainstream cinema ignored. His most famous film, Within Our Gates, 1920, was a direct response to The Birth of a Nation. It included a devastating scene depicting the brutal reality of lynching, offering a raw, unfiltered perspective on American violence. The boldness of his stories often led to intense battles with white censorship boards, which tried to ban his films under the guise of morality. They objected to his depictions of interracial romance, social inequality, and black urban life. Micheaux fought back, often creatively editing his films just enough to pass censorship boards, or sometimes simply showing the original cut in independent black theatres where state authorities had less reach. He was an uncompromising fighter for artistic freedom. When talkies arrived in the late 1920s, many early filmmakers collapsed under the massive cost of new equipment. Micheaux, ever the survivor, adapted. He continued his relentless output, releasing The Exile, 1931, one of the first sound features by a black director. Though his later films were often criticized for technical flaws, a side effect of his tight budgets and furious production schedule, he maintained the integrity of his narratives, never compromising his vision for Hollywood cash. Between 1919 and 1948, Oscar Micheaux wrote, produced, and directed over 40 feature films, an astonishing feat of independent production. He discovered and mentored many early black acting talents, creating an entire ecosystem of black cinema professionals. He was a true titan, a one-man studio whose output and control rivaled any contemporary studio head. But his focus was not on wealth or fame, it was on the vital task of reclaiming the narrative. Micheaux often found himself in philosophical tension with the black intelligentsia. Critics sometimes argued that his complex, often unflattering depictions of colorism and class struggles within the black community were too critical. Micheaux defended his work fiercely, arguing that the black audience deserved the same complexity, the same flawed heroes, and the same range of storytelling that white audiences enjoyed. He believed the path to equality demanded seeing oneself fully, warts and all. After World War II, the race film industry declined as mainstream Hollywood tentatively began to integrate. Micheaux was largely forgotten by the wider public for decades. However, his legacy endures. Today, he is recognized as a foundational figure in American cinema. He received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame decades after his death, a fitting, if delayed, tribute to the man who forced America to look at black life through a truthful lens. Oscar Micheaux was more than a filmmaker, he was an entrepreneur of imagination. He understood that true freedom requires controlling your own story. His life proves that with enough vision, courage, and relentless business acumen, an individual can build an empire strong enough to counter any entrenched power. He paved the way for every independent filmmaker, every black director, and every diverse narrative on screen today. He did not ask for a seat at the table. He built his own studio. Oscar Micheaux's strategic genius and artistic courage changed cinema forever. In a nation where women couldn't vote and segregation was law, one black woman dared to build a financial empire. She wasn't born into wealth, she created it. She didn't ask for a seat at the table, she built her own bank. Her name was Maggie Lena Walker, and this is the story of the extraordinary entrepreneur, visionary, and the first woman in American history to charter and preside over a bank. She built an entire economic ecosystem, empowering a community with the tools for self-sufficiency and prosperity. Maggie Lena Walker was born Maggie Lena Mitchell in 1864 in Richmond, Virginia, just a year before the end of the Civil War. Her mother was a former enslaved laundress. Her stepfather, William Mitchell, was a hotel waiter. She grew up in a pivotal era of Reconstruction and the burgeoning New South. Despite the oppressive shadow of Jim Crow, Richmond was also a city of burgeoning black institutions. Maggie learned early the value of community support and self-help, lessons that would shape her life's mission. Maggie excelled in school, graduating from the Richmond Colored Normal School in 1883. She became a teacher, a respected profession that afforded her a platform in the community. However, marriage laws of the time forced her to resign upon her wedding to Armstead Walker Jr. Undeterred, Maggie found a new calling in the Independent Order of St. Luke, a fraternal benefit society. Initially focused on caring for the sick and burying the dead, Maggie saw its potential as a vehicle for much grander aspirations, economic empowerment, and community uplift. Maggie rose quickly through the ranks of the Independent Order of St. Luke. By 1899, she was elected as the Executive Secretary-Treasurer, a position of immense power and responsibility. At the time, the order was struggling financially with only $31.61 in its treasury. Maggie's vision was clear: to transform the organization from merely a burial society into a powerhouse of self-help and economic independence. She preached the gospel of unity and cooperation, urging members to pool their resources and invest in their own community. Walker's strategy was comprehensive. She established new departments, dramatically increased membership, and instilled strict financial discipline. But her boldest idea was yet to come. She proposed creating Black-owned institutions to serve Black people who were systematically denied services by white businesses. Her ultimate goal: a bank, a newspaper, and a department store. These three pillars, she argued, would create a self-sustaining ecosystem for Richmond's African-American community, providing jobs, capital, and consumer power. In 1903, Maggie L. Walker made history. She chartered the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank and became its first president. This was not just a momentous achievement for Black America, it made her the first woman of any race in the United States to charter and serve as president of a bank. Her bank provided vital financial services to a community often shut out by white institutions. It offered home loans, business loans, and a safe place for Black families to save their money, nurturing dreams and building generational wealth. Understanding the power of communication, Walker also founded the St. Luke Herald newspaper. This publication served not only as a mouthpiece for the Independent Order, but as a vital news source for the Black community, promoting Black businesses, celebrating achievements, and advocating for civil rights. The Herald countered the often negative portrayals of Black people in mainstream white newspapers, offering a platform for positive self-representation and fostering a sense of collective identity and purpose. Completing her vision, Walker established the St. Luke Emporium, a department store. This was more than just a place to shop. It was a symbol of Black economic independence, providing jobs for Black clerks and managers and offering quality goods to Black consumers. Her motto, "Spend your money where you make your money," encouraged economic self-sufficiency within the Black community, ensuring that capital circulated internally, strengthening their collective power. Walker's financial acumen was severely tested during the Great Depression. While many white-owned banks failed, the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank not only survived but thrived, a testament to her conservative yet strategic management. She orchestrated a merger with two other Black-owned banks, creating the Consolidated Bank and Trust Company. This strategic move ensured its continued stability, making it the oldest continually operating Black-owned bank in the United States until its acquisition in 2005. Beyond her business empire, Maggie L. Walker was a tireless civic leader and advocate for civil rights. She served on numerous boards, tirelessly working to improve education, public health, and social welfare for African Americans. She understood that economic power was inextricably linked to political power and was an outspoken advocate for women's suffrage, believing that the ballot was crucial for Black women to protect their families and advance their communities. Maggie L. Walker's list of firsts is staggering. First woman bank president, pioneer in community development, and a leader who built an entire economic infrastructure for her people. Her strategic mind was decades ahead of its time. Despite her immense professional achievements, she also maintained a vibrant family life with her husband and children, balancing the demanding roles of matriarch and magnate. Walker faced significant personal adversity, including the tragic accidental death of her husband and increasing physical challenges. In 1928, she began using a wheelchair due to complications from diabetes, but it never slowed her down. She continued to lead her institutions from her home, often dictating letters and making decisions from her bedside. Her resilience in the face of physical limitation only solidified her image as an indomitable force. Maggie L. Walker passed away in 1934, leaving behind a legacy of financial empowerment and institutional strength. Her vision had not only survived but thrived through some of America's toughest economic times. Her home in Richmond, now a National Historic Site, stands as a testament to her life and work, a tangible reminder of how one woman's strategic brilliance could build lasting prosperity and independence for an entire community. Maggie L. Walker's story is a powerful blueprint for self-determination. She understood that true freedom was intertwined with economic power. She didn't just advocate for change, she built the very mechanisms through which change could be achieved. Her life is a masterclass in entrepreneurship, community leadership, and the enduring power of investing in one's own. Her institutions laid the groundwork for generations of Black economic progress. Maggie L. Walker's strategic genius continues to inspire. History remembers the names of the great explorers, but for decades it forgot the man who actually led the way. While the world cheered for Admiral Robert Peary, the man who stood at the center of the world first, the man who spoke the language, drove the dogs, and built the sleds, remained in the shadows. His name was Matthew Henson. He was an orphan who fled the Jim Crow South to become a master mariner, a survival expert, and the first human to set foot on the geographic North Pole. This is the story of the strategic genius and physical resilience of the man who conquered the most hostile environment on Earth. Matthew Alexander Henson was born in 1866 in Charles County, Maryland, just after the Civil War. Orphaned by age 11, he walked to Washington, D.C. to find work, eventually making his way to Baltimore, where the call of the ocean changed his life forever. At age 12, he signed on as a cabin boy on the merchant ship Katie Hines. Under the mentorship of Captain Childs, Henson didn't just scrub decks. He received a masterclass in navigation, seafaring, and geography. By the time he was a young man, he was a highly skilled mariner who had seen the world from China to North Africa. In 1887, Henson was working as a clerk in a Washington, D.C. hat shop when he met Robert Peary, an ambitious officer in the U.S. Navy Civil Engineering Corps. Peary was looking for an assistant for a surveying expedition to Nicaragua. Impressed by Henson's maritime experience, Peary hired him on the spot. It was the beginning of a 22-year partnership. But Henson quickly proved he was far more than an assistant. He was a strategic asset. In the jungles of Central America, his resourcefulness became legendary. When Peary turned his sights toward the last great unconquered frontier, the North Pole, he knew he couldn't do it without Henson. In 1891, they embarked on their first Arctic expedition together. While others struggled with the cold, Henson studied it. He realized that Western technology was no match for the Arctic. To survive, they had to learn from the experts, the Inuit people of Greenland. This was Henson's first great strategic move, immersion into a culture that had mastered the impossible. Henson did what Peary could not. He became one with the Inuit people. He learned their language, their hunting techniques, and their methods of survival. He became so proficient that the Inuit gave him a name, Mahri Pahluk, the kind Matthew. Henson became the vital bridge between the expedition and the locals. He negotiated for supplies and dogs, and he learned the art of Inuit sled building and dog driving, eventually becoming more skilled than any Westerner alive. Without Henson's ability to communicate and adapt, the mission would have ended in the snow. The North Pole was a moving target of shifting ice and sub-zero temperatures. Henson was the expedition's master mechanic. He redesigned the sleds to be lighter and more durable, and he maintained the stoves and equipment that kept the team alive in -50-degree weather. His excellence was so absolute that Peary later wrote, "Henson must go with me, I can't make it without him." While Peary provided the funding and the ambition, Henson provided the technical mastery and the physical grit. For over a decade, success eluded them. They faced starvation, frostbite, and the death of their sled dogs. In one expedition, Peary lost several toes to frostbite, requiring Henson to literally pull him on a sled for hundreds of miles. These failures would have broken most men, but Henson's resilience was strategic. Every failure was a lesson in logistics, food caching, and timing. They were waiting for the perfect window of weather and health. By 1908, it was now or never. In February 1909, the final expedition departed. Peary established a system of support teams that would drop off supplies and then turn back. One by one, the white members of the expedition were sent south. For the final 133-mile dash to the pole, Peary chose only 5 men to accompany him: Matthew Henson and 4 Inuit men, Uta, Egegingwa, Siglu, and Uquia. Peary chose Henson because, as he put it, Henson was the only one who could actually get them there and back alive. On the morning of April 6th, Henson was out ahead of the main party, scouting the trail. When he stopped to check his position, he realized the ice beneath his feet was the top of the world. Matthew Henson had reached the North Pole first. When a weary Peary caught up, Henson reportedly greeted him saying, "I think I'm the first man to sit on top of the world." It was a moment of supreme achievement, but it also planted the seeds of a lifelong rift. Peary, obsessed with being the discoverer, was privately devastated that his assistant had beaten him to the mark. They returned to America as heroes, but the glory was lopsided. Peary was promoted to admiral and given the congressional thanks. Matthew Henson, the man who had physically led the way, was largely ignored. He spent the next 30 years working as a humble clerk in the New York Customs House. Because he was black, the scientific community and the press refused to acknowledge his role as a co-explorer. He was relegated to the status of a servant in the history books, despite having been the most skilled member of the team. Truth, like ice, eventually thaws. In his later years, the black community and a new generation of explorers fought for Henson's recognition. In 1937, he was finally made an honorary member of the prestigious Explorers Club. In 1944, he was awarded a Congressional Medal. Today, he is buried in Arlington National Cemetery, right next to Robert Peary, finally standing as an equal in death as he was in life. Matthew Henson proved that a man from the most humble beginnings could master the most unforgiving place on earth through sheer intellectual and physical excellence. Matthew Henson was the master of the North, a man whose strategic skills were the difference between life and death. If you were inspired by his incredible journey, please like this video and subscribe to Lives in Time. We are dedicated to bringing the stories of these unseen giants to light. Click the notification bell so you never miss an episode of history's greatest achievers. In the roaring 1920s, while America danced to the rhythm of the Jazz Age, what did the world see? Often it was a caricature, the racist distortions painted by white hands in minstrel shows and mainstream media. But one artist in Chicago refused to accept this lens. He was classically trained, an intellectual master of technique who used his brush as a weapon. He didn't paint stereotypes, he painted people. He captured the energy, the sophistication, and the joy of the black urban experience. His name was Archibald Motley, Jr., and this is the story of the visionary artist who used high art to reclaim the black narrative and define the modern jazz age. Archibald Motley Jr. was born in New Orleans in 1891 but raised in Chicago. His family was part of the black middle class. His father worked for the Pullman Company and later in real estate. They valued education, discipline, and achievement. In Chicago, the Motleys lived in a predominantly white, affluent neighborhood, giving young Archibald a unique perspective on the complexities of race and class from an early age. From childhood, Archibald was obsessed with drawing. While his parents hoped he might pursue architecture or medicine, they recognized his immense talent. They encouraged his passion, providing him with art supplies and private lessons, fostering the intellectual and artistic foundation necessary for his strategic ambition. In 1914, at age 23, Motley achieved a monumental milestone. He was admitted to the Art Institute of Chicago, one of the most prestigious art schools in the nation. He was one of the very few black students in his class. This was his strategic first step, to master the classical Western canon, its composition, color theory, and technique, proving that a black artist could rival any master. He studied diligently, absorbing the techniques of European realism and Impressionism. He excelled, winning prizes and gaining the respect of his instructors. But he was already planning a radical departure from the European pastoral scenes he was taught to paint. Upon graduating in 1918, Motley focused his professional skills on dignified realist portraiture. He didn't need to search for authentic black subjects. He started with his own family. His paintings, such as Mending Socks, a tender, powerful portrait of his grandmother, were revolutionary in their simplicity and deep humanity. By painting black subjects with classical precision, dignity, and emotional complexity, he was issuing a challenge. He was forcing the art world to see his community not as caricatures, but as individuals worthy of high art. It was a quiet, intellectual act of defiance. By the 1920s, Chicago had become a primary destination of the Great Migration. Tens of thousands of African Americans had fled the Jim Crow South, settling in the South Side neighborhood known as Bronzeville. Bronzeville was a bustling, self-sufficient city within a city, full of black-owned businesses, theaters, churches, and vibrant social life. While the Harlem Renaissance was blooming in New York, Motley was the master chronicler of the Renaissance in Chicago. Bronzeville was his canvas. This is where Motley's art transformed. He moved from the quiet parlor into the dynamic streets, the dance halls, the pool rooms, and the parks. He wasn't just painting a scene, he was painting the sound of the Jazz Age. His genre paintings are iconic for their artificial lighting, bold, often clashing colors, especially his signature deep reds and purples, and dynamic compositions that convey movement, leisure, and the joy of public life. Paintings like Blues, 1929, show diverse groups of black people in a chic nightclub, sophisticated and in motion. Mainstream America was fascinated by jazz culture, but Hollywood and literature often reduced it to simplistic, racist primitivism. Motley's paintings countered this with strategic sophistication. He showed the nuances of class and the diverse interests within the community, from elite intellectuals in the club to everyday people in the park. Crucially, Motley was a direct observer. He would visit Bronzeville neighborhoods, sit in parks, and make sketches from life, ensuring his representations were based on observation, not imagination or stereotype. Motley's work also grappled with complex issues within the black community. He was one of the first artists to extensively and deliberately paint the wide spectrum of black skin tones, from the lightest octoroon to the deepest black. He understood that color was connected to issues of class, identity, and passing. His paintings did not present a monolith. They showed the beautiful, sometimes painful, reality of racial diversity within the community. This required immense technical skill and an intellectual commitment to telling the full truth about his people. Motley's excellence was recognized on the highest level. In 1929, he won a Guggenheim Fellowship, which included the prestigious Prix de Rome. This funded a year-long residency in Paris, the global center of modern art. In Paris, Motley visited the Louvre, studying the European masters from the Renaissance to the Impressionists. He also encountered the Negritude movement, the emerging international black intellectual consciousness. But more than anything, Paris gave him a new perspective on his home. In France, Motley experienced a freedom that was impossible in America. While Jim Crow was the law of the land in the US, Paris in the 1920s was relatively open, and Black American artists and musicians found a welcoming, less segregated intellectual climate. Interestingly, his time in Paris did not make his art more French. Instead, the contrast solidified his strategic focus. He returned to the United States with an even greater determination to document the specifics of American Black urban life, seeing it as a unique and vital subject, as worthy as any French countryside. Though Chicago was his base, Motley was a critical figure of the broader Harlem Renaissance, and his work was exhibited in major shows dedicated to new Negro art. In 1928, he received the prestigious Harmon Foundation Award, one of the highest honors for Black achievement in the arts. Alain Locke, the leading philosopher of the Harlem Renaissance, praised Motley's work for its realism and its ability to capture the modern Negro with technical mastery. Motley was not just an illustrator, he was a vital intellectual part of the movement to uplift the race through cultural excellence. By the 1930s, Motley had defined an entire aesthetic. His clashing, jazz-like colors and focus on bustling public scenes became synonymous with the visual language of the Black urban modern experience. He had successfully carved a space in the canon of American high art for the very subject mainstream culture sought to ignore. The Great Depression and the subsequent rise of abstract expressionism in the art world made Motley's figurative, socially focused style seem dated to some critics. His later work, while still technically masterful, adopted a simpler, slightly flatter style, partially because the market for his Jazz Age genre paintings declined. For decades after the Harlem Renaissance faded, Motley was largely overlooked by the wider art public. Yet, he never stopped painting the community he loved, and he mentored numerous younger Black artists, ensuring the continuity of representation and technical skill. Today, Archibald Motley Jr. is rightfully recognized as a master American modernist. His strategic brilliance was in using elite technical skill to make the unseen visible, transforming the mundane reality of Black public life into enduring, sophisticated high art. When we think of the dawn of the modern age, one name often illuminates the rest: Thomas Edison. But history is often a simplified circuit. The inventions that built our world, the telephone, the electric light, didn't just require a single eureka moment. They required technical mastery and a profound understanding of intellectual property to make them work, and to protect them in a cutthroat industrial landscape. Enter Lewis Latimer. This self-taught genius wasn't the face of the revolution. He was its vital engineer and its strategic defender. He was the man who took Edison's brilliant idea for a light bulb and found the missing practical piece to make it accessible to the world. He was the mind that navigated the legal complex of the patent office. This is the story of Lewis Latimer, the man whose strategic intellect delivered light to the world. Our story begins not in a corporate lab, but in the challenging context of post-Civil War America. Lewis Latimer was an individual defined by persistence, widely described by historians as a self-taught genius. He didn't have formal engineering degrees, but he understood that in the Industrial Revolution, technical knowledge was the new currency. Latimer realized that to be a part of the future, he needed to understand how the future was built and documented. He began working in patent law offices where he observed the complex visual language of innovation, draftsmanship. Recognizing that every great invention needed to be precisely drawn to be patented, he set about teaching himself the intricate art of mechanical drawing, absorbing the principles of engineering with every line and curve he rendered. Latimer's emerging reputation as a master draftsman soon caught the attention of one of the era's most ambitious inventors, Alexander Graham Bell. Bell was in a frantic, history-defining race against other inventors to patent the telephone. The invention required precise, flawless documentation for the US Patent Office. Bell chose Lewis Latimer, trusting his strategic technical mind and expert drafting skills to visualize the complex theory of transmitting the human voice over a wire. Latimer successfully drafted the crucial patent drawings for Alexander Graham Bell's telephone, ensuring its vital legal status as a unique and foundational innovation. With the telephone secured, Latimer's technical strategic intellect was drawn to the biggest challenge of the era: electric lighting. Thomas Edison had already achieved global fame by 1879 for inventing a light bulb. However, Edison's bulb was not practical for the real world. It used a paper filament that burned out too quickly, making it too expensive and short-lived for widespread public use. This was the era of the current wars, where rival inventors and massive corporations fought for control of this revolutionary new utility. The industry didn't just need another innovation, it needed a practical, durable, and commercially viable solution that could bring electric light into every home and business. The battle was not just in the lab, but in the technical application of the theory, the very strategic territory where Lewis Latimer excelled. While others focused on complex theories, Lewis Latimer looked at the material science. He understood that the core of the problem, and the strategic bottleneck for the entire industry, was the filament. After intense experimentation, Latimer developed the groundbreaking innovation that unlocked the potential of electric lighting. While Edison is credited with the light bulb, it was Lewis Latimer who invented the carbon filament. This new process of carbonizing a fibrous material created a durable, robust filament that, critically, made the electric bulb practical and long-lasting for commercial use. It was the technical bridge that allowed a novelty to become a utility. Inventing the practical filament was only the first step of Latimer's strategy. In the cutthroat late 19th century, a patent wasn't just a certificate, it was a defense against litigation. Recognizing the value of intellectual property, Latimer patented his carbon filament process. But he went much further. Latimer wasn't just an inventor, he became a strategic defender of patents, actively engaged in ensuring that the innovations of the Industrial Revolution actually worked in the real world and were protected. He was famously hired by competing electric light companies to provide technical expertise in patent disputes, using his knowledge to define which innovations were unique and legally sound. His strategic brilliance and unmatched technical knowledge of lighting patents eventually made him an indispensable figure to the very man who received the public glory, Thomas Edison. Edison hired Latimer, but the relationship was not as employer and employee, it was master and master. Latimer became the only black member of the elite group known as the Edison Pioneers, a collection of Edison's earliest and most trusted technical and scientific associates. For Edison, Latimer was more than an engineer, he was a strategic asset, a key mind in the core group that built the very industry that Edison championed. The outsider from the segregated Jim Crow South had used pure intellect to secure a foundational seat at the most important table of the industrial age. Beyond his inventions and patent defense, Latimer was also an intellectual who sought to educate the new workforce needed for this electric future. He understood that the ultimate defense of progress was a public understanding of how it worked. In 1890, he published the first textbook on electric lighting, providing practical instructions for engineers and technicians on how to install and maintain the very systems he helped create. This act of publication was a strategic dissemination of knowledge, ensuring that the entire infrastructure of delivered light was robust and sustainable. So why is Lewis Latimer's story essential to Lives in Time? Because it challenges the superficial narrative of a single, lone inventor achieving victory. Latimer proved that true, enduring progress requires an unseen, complex network of technical and strategic intellect. He wasn't just a brilliant mind working in isolation, his strategic genius was interwoven into the success of Bell's telephone, Edison's light bulb, and the entire structure of industrial patent law. His home in New York, preserved as a National Historic Site, stands as a monument not to a celebrity, but to the strategic engineer who understood how to make a revolution practical and sustainable. He spent his later years mentoring and advocating for the next generation of scientists and engineers, passing on his strategic legacy. When we turn on a light today, we are using a mechanism made practical by Latimer. He wasn't the face of the revolution, but he was its indispensable architect, ensuring that the light we see and the technology we use were built with the enduring strategic brilliance that defined lives in time. For decades, Latimer's role was relegated to a footnote in the Edison myth, but historians and a new generation of explorers are reclaiming his true strategic significance. By analyzing the patent battles and technical roadblocks he navigated, we are uncovering a mastermind who ensured that the Industrial Revolution actually worked and was sustainable. He didn't just invent, he engaged with the entire complex machine of progress, lab, patent office, and court, proving that a self-taught black man could master the entire system of global innovation. Latimer's life is a profound masterclass in the importance of strategy over celebrity. His contributions were foundational yet invisible, interwoven into the success of the biggest names in history. He reminds us that true progress is a collective, technical and strategic endeavor, often led by unseen giants who focus on the how rather than the who. He demonstrated that elite technical excellence and strategic thinking are the ultimate tools for overcoming barriers, proving that an individual's intellectual prowess can build a world. Imagine a disease so feared, so disfiguring, that those afflicted were banished to isolated colonies, outcasts of humanity. For centuries, a diagnosis meant a life sentence of despair without hope of cure. Until a young woman, a brilliant chemist, dared to challenge the impossible. Her name was Alice Ball. At just 23 years old, she developed the only effective treatment for leprosy, saving countless lives and revolutionizing medicine. But her genius was almost stolen by history, silenced by the biases of her time. This is the story of Alice Ball, the strategic mind who conquered a medical curse, only to have her legacy nearly erased. Alice Augusta Ball was born in 1892 in Seattle, Washington, into a family that nurtured intellectual curiosity and opportunity. Her grandfather, James Ball Jr., was a prominent photographer and one of the first African Americans to graduate from Oberlin College. Her father was a lawyer and her mother a photographer. The Balls were a family of innovators, artists, and intellectuals. This environment, far from the overt segregation of the Jim Crow South, allowed young Alice to cultivate her prodigious talents in an era when opportunities for black women in science were virtually non-existent. Alice's academic career was meteoric. She earned 2 bachelor's degrees from the University of Washington, one in pharmaceutical chemistry in 1912 and another in the science of pharmacy in 1914. Her brilliance was undeniable, producing groundbreaking research on ether extracts. In 1915, at just 23, Alice Ball achieved another historic first. She became the first African American and the first woman to graduate with a master's degree from the University of Hawaii. Her thesis, focusing on the chemical properties of Piper methysticum, kava plant, showcased her advanced understanding of organic chemistry and natural product analysis. Her exceptional talent was recognized immediately. She wasn't just offered a research position at the University of Hawaii, she was appointed as the first female chemistry instructor at the institution. This was an extraordinary achievement, placing her at the forefront of scientific research in a male-dominated field, in a cutting-edge laboratory. This appointment put her in a prime position to make a monumental breakthrough. At the University of Hawaii, she was recruited by Dr. Harry Holman, a leading physician who was desperate for a solution to a global medical crisis, leprosy. For centuries, leprosy, known as Henson's disease, was a terrifying diagnosis. It led to severe disfigurement, social ostracization, and permanent exile to remote, desolate colonies. In Hawaii, the infamous Kalaupapa settlement on Molokai housed thousands of sufferers, living a life of utter despair. The only known treatment was chalmugra oil, which was difficult for patients to stomach and too thick to inject effectively. The scientific community was at a dead end. Researchers had tried everything, but the oil itself was too insoluble in water to be delivered into the bloodstream and too noxious to be tolerated orally. A breakthrough in organic chemistry was desperately needed. At 23, Alice Ball took on the challenge. She applied her expertise in natural product chemistry and analytical methods to the problem of chalmugra oil. Her strategic insight was not to find a new drug, but to make the existing drug work. She developed a revolutionary process, isolating the active compounds in chalmugra oil and, through esterification, converting them into a water-soluble, injectable form. This breakthrough transformed the oil from an unpalatable, ineffective concoction into a safe, easily administered intramuscular injection. It became known as the Ball method. The impact of the Ball method was immediate and profound. Patients who had been condemned to Kalaupapa began to show remarkable improvement. Lesions healed, and for the first time in history, leprosy was treatable. Many patients were eventually cured and able to return to their families, free from the curse of isolation. Alice Ball had achieved a medical miracle, not through a magic bullet, but through elegant strategic chemistry that unlocked the potential of an existing remedy. Her work revolutionized the treatment of leprosy and saved countless lives across the globe, bringing hope where there was once only despair. Tragically, Alice Ball did not live to see the full, glorious impact of her discovery. In 1916, at the height of her scientific prowess, she fell ill. The exact cause is debated, but it's believed she inhaled toxic fumes, chlorine gas, during a lab accident, possibly from an unsecured fume hood. She returned to Seattle for treatment, but passed away at just 24 years old. Her untimely death silenced a voice that had just begun to change the world. It also left her groundbreaking work vulnerable to the systemic biases of the time. After Ball's death, the president of the University of Hawaii, Dr. Arthur Dean, continued her work. But instead of crediting her, he published her findings, claiming the Ball method as his own. He renamed it the Dean method and began producing the treatment on a large scale. This act of scientific theft was a stark reminder of the challenges faced by black women in science, whose contributions were often undervalued or appropriated by white male colleagues. For years, Alice Ball's name and her revolutionary discovery were erased from the history books. The truth, like a persistent chemical reaction, eventually came to light. Dr. Harry Holman, the physician who first enlisted Ball's help, refused to let her memory fade. In 1922, he published an article in the Journal of the American Medical Association, explicitly crediting Alice Ball with the discovery and condemning Dean's actions. It took decades of strategic investigation by historians and advocates to fully restore her legacy. Today, the University of Hawaii acknowledges her contributions, and February 29th is celebrated as Alice Ball Day. Her story stands as a beacon of intellectual achievement and a stark reminder of the ongoing fight for equitable recognition in science. Alice Ball's strategic mind, honed in the chemistry lab, delivered not just a cure but hope. Her work transformed the lives of thousands, dismantling the fear and isolation surrounding leprosy. She proved that age, gender, and race are no barrier to scientific genius, and that a single, brilliant insight can literally change the world. Her story reminds us of the countless hidden figures whose contributions were vital but often uncredited. Her legacy is not just in the millions of lives she touched, but in the ongoing inspiration she provides to young scientists today. If you were inspired by the incredible, yet almost lost, story of Alice Ball, the chemist who cured the incurable, please like this video and subscribe to Lives in Time. Your support allows us to continue bringing these vital, often untold stories of strategic achievement and scientific breakthrough to light. Click the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into history's greatest minds.